Page 26. Question 17. Is Lady Macbeth, quote, feared, unquote, like? What evidence of the lurking woman do you find in this ogress? Or, how significant is the role of Lady Macbeth in Macbeth? This is from CU Honours Paper 1997. Or, Lady Macbeth is a study in wickedness, but she is wicked with a difference. Elucidate. CU Honours Paper 2002. Or, examine Lady Macbeth's role in the execution of Macbeth's ambitious plans. How does this affect Lady Macbeth herself? CU Honours Paper 2002. Answer. Lady Macbeth is often compared to Clytemnestra of Aeschylus's drama. It is true that in the beginning of the play she appears to be cruel and relentless. She welcomes Duncan to her castle with murder in her heart and a smile on her lips. She plans the details of the murder without the least recoiling and remorse. Macbeth hesitates and fears, but she dominates him with her imperious will and passionate courage. Yet she is not like Clytemnestra. She is not driven by a relentless hatred for the victim. She is not the remorseless criminal who revels in bloodshed. She looks like a fiend at the beginning of the play, but essentially she is a woman with womanly instincts. In the beginning of the play, she is the very picture of cruelty and grandeur. Like Macbeth, she is ambitious. So, when she receives the letter from Macbeth and knows the predictions of the witches, she thinks of murder. Knowing Macbeth as she does, she is afraid that her husband will not be equal to the task. So she, quote, chastises him with the valor of her tongue, unquote, and screws his courage to the sticking place. She appeals to the powers of darkness to come to her and, quote, take her milk for gall, unquote. She speaks even of being ready to pluck the nipple from the boneless gums of her smiling infant and dash the brains out. She is the very picture of fiendish cruelty and hard-heartedness. Her will is inflexible and her courage is invincible. Macbeth falters and recoils. She urges him on. She bends his corporal agents to the terrible feat. She taunts him, bullies him, coaxes him, and reproaches him with want of love. She pictures the deed as heroic and grand. Act 1, Scene 7, lines 39-40 and 47-48. She gives a ready and practical scheme for carrying out the murder. Act 1, Scene 7, lines 61-73. In this part of the play, she shows no weakness, no irresolution. Her strong determination and inflexible force of will elicit from Macbeth admiration. Bring forth men, children only, for thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males. She remains equally strong and supreme in the murder scene. Macbeth brings the dagger from the place, but cannot be prevailed upon to put them back there. He is afraid to think what he has done. She boldly asks Macbeth to, quote, give me the daggers, unquote. She reproaches Macbeth, quote, the sleeping and the dead are but pictures. It is the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil, unquote. Is it not expressive of undaunted mettle? The resolute, relentless woman is full of contempt for her vacillating husband. She cannot imagine that their attempt may fail. We fail? But screw your courage to the sticking place and we will not fail, unquote. It is this cruel courage and confidence of Lady Macbeth, her grand, heroic, terrible nature, that inspired Goethe to call her, quote, the super witch, unquote. She is also called the fourth witch. within quotes, because she completed the work done by the witches. In the first scene of fifth act, we get another picture of Lady Macbeth. She is walking in sleep. She creeps from bed mumbling feebly, quote, "Yet here's a spot," unquote. She whispers, quote, "The Thane of Life had a wife, where is she now?" Unquote. She smells the odor of blood in her hand and sighs that, quote, "all the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten it." She goes back to bed hurriedly, quote, to bed, there's knocking at the gate," unquote. Page 27. This is the picture of broken, exhausted lady. The resolute, masterful lady who was almost the impersonation of ruthless, undaunted ambition, walks in sleep, mumbling incoherently the details of the crime and the fatal night. Are the two pictures of Lady Macbeth compatible? The answer is that they are. We may find traces of the woman even in the fury of the earlier scenes of the play. The earlier scenes give sufficient anticipation of the broken lady. Her first soliloquy betrays the woman in her. Her passionate call to the spirits tending on mortal thoughts to, quote, "unsex her here and fill her from the crown to the toe, topful of direst cruelty," unquote, shows her essential womanliness. This shows that she is a woman, that she shares the normal weakness of the sex, that her blood is not thick enough, and that she knows the compunctious visitings of nature which she wants to shake off. When she says, quote, "come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall," unquote, her womanliness speaks out. She is fully aware of her own, quote, "milk of human kindness," unquote, which she is anxious to transform into gall. In her heroic words, one can find traces of her womanly weakness. Quote, "I have given suck and know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me," unquote. She puts herself at her sternest, at her cruelest, yet at this time comes the memory of her having been a mother once and having given suck to the baby. Here the mother in her arises. Again, when she says, quote, "had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it," unquote. Here the daughter in her speaks. If for a time she is unsexed, it is a temporary artificial phase with her. In the murder scene she has to take wine to nerve herself. She cannot stand the shock of the discovery of the murder. She faints. After Duncan's murder she gradually fades. She grows lethargic. Quote, "Naught's had all spent," unquote, is all she feels now. This reveals the depth of her desolation. She does not conceal the fact that her, quote, "desire is not without content," unquote. She feels extremely lonely. Quote, "why do you keep alone of sorriest fancies your companions making?" Unquote. In the banquet scene, she looks exhausted, despondent. Shakespeare prepares us for the sleepwalking lady. When the ghost turns up and Macbeth begins his ravings, she meets the emergency with competence and confidence. But her energies in the banquet scene are the last flicker of the extinguished fire. The sleepwalking scene shows the broken and fallen lady. Campbell says that, quote, "in Lady Macbeth's misery there is contrition," unquote. But this is not true. From the moment of her agonized cry of despair, "Naught's had all spent," we are made to feel the torture of conscience that plagues her. This is supported as much by her demoniacal somnambulism. Demoniacal somnambulism. within quotes, as by her husband's words to the doctor about, quote, the perilous stuff that weigh upon the heart, unquote. Question 18. Can you reconcile the Lady Macbeth that walks in sleep with the Lady Macbeth that urges her husband to the crime? Answer. See answer to question 17. Question 19. Do you agree or disagree with the critics who think that Lady Macbeth did violence to her own feminine instincts before the murder of Duncan and ultimately paid a heavy penalty for it? Answer. Same as the answer to question 17. Question 20. Quote, this dead butcher and his fiend-like queen, unquote. Is this a correct and adequate description of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth? Answer. See answer to questions 10 and 17. Page 28. Question 23. Contrast Macbeth with Lady Macbeth. Answer. Apparently, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are criminals responsible for the murder of Duncan. Both are exceedingly ambitious. Both are proud and commanding. Lady Macbeth is, however, ambitious for the sake of her husband. At first, Lady Macbeth is stronger than Macbeth. He recoils and hesitates. He fears and scruples. But Lady Macbeth is free from all fears and scruples. She urges her husband on to the murder. She asks her husband to give to her, quote, this night's great dispatch, unquote. She exerts herself fully to keep up the faltering will of her husband. She wins him over by taunting him, bullying him, reproaching him, and by picturing the deed as heroic. Throughout the first act, she is the very picture of a resolute, relentless, and masterful woman. By contrast, Macbeth appears to be weak, vacillating, cowardly. Macbeth is a more complex character than Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth is matter-of-fact and practical. Lady Macbeth is matter-of-fact and practical. She has no imagination, and this is the fundamental point of contrast with her husband. She is absorbed in the thought of that side to which her affections draw her. The rest she ignores or denies. Hence she shows a great singleness of purpose. Macbeth, on the other hand, is troubled by too many and too varied aspects of the problem. Hence he suffers from vacillation, uncertainty, and doubt. Macbeth has scruples of various kinds. He thinks of the practical consequences of the murder as well as the moral issues involved. His soliloquy beginning with, quote, if it were done, unquote, is a testimony to the complex working of his mind. Lady Macbeth is blind to all consequences. This explains why she goes to commit the crime without heart-searching and without any thinking on the consequences of the crime. When the reaction comes, it is deadlier in Lady Macbeth. At first, Lady Macbeth dismisses the murder of Duncan with indifference. She says in a light-hearted manner that a little water clears us of this deed. This shows how simple her nature is. But Macbeth knows the enormity of the crime. Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand? No, this my hand will rather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green red. Macbeth is fully aware of the, quote, deep damnation of his taking off, unquote. Macbeth hears voices and sees visions after the murder, but Lady Macbeth remains untouched. She hears only the owl screaming and the crickets crying. But she has also the tortures of conscience. She feels that, quote, these deeds must not be thought after these ways, so it will drive us mad, unquote. But while Lady Macbeth's simple mind is completely undermined by the tortured conscience after the murder of Duncan, Macbeth has complex reactions. He is weary in spirit and at the same time desperate and ruthless. The strain that Lady Macbeth puts upon herself for the murder of Duncan has proved too much for her. This has shattered her nerves and spirit. This is the natural reaction of the unnatural deed in which she has participated. She gradually fades. While remorse distracts her husband with desperate action, it gnaws into her and destroys her vitality. Her agonized cry of despair, quote, "Naughts had all spent," unquote, is expressive of the pangs of conscience. She is gradually exhausted. The sleepwalking lady is a ghost of herself, throwing up dead wreckage of memory. But Macbeth is despondent and desperate at the same time. His frustrated ambition and tortured conscience have given rise to contrary feelings of sickness of heart and ruthless desperation. Page 29. His weariness of spirit and desperate feelings are conveyed in the lines, quote, "I begin to be weary of the sun, and wish the estate of the world were now undone. Ring the alarm bell, blow wind, come wreck, at least we'll die with harness on our back." Unquote. Macbeth strives from murder to murder and gradually degenerates into a, quote, "dead butcher." Unquote. Edith Sitwell points out the contrast of the two characters in her inimitable manner. Quote, "In this vast world torn from the universe of night, there are three tragic themes. The first theme is that of the actual guilt and the separation in damnation of two characters, the man who in spite of his guilt walks the road of the spirit and who loves the light that has forsaken him, and the woman who after her invocation to the spirits who tend on mortal thoughts walks in the material world and who does not know that light exists until she is nearing her end." Unquote. Quote, The second tragic theme of the play is the man's love for the woman whose damnation is of the earth, who is unable until death is near to conceive of the damnation of the spirit, and who in her blindness therefore strays away from him, leaving him forever in his lonely hell. Unquote. Quote, "The third tragic theme is the woman's despairing love for the man whose vision she cannot see and whom she has helped to drive into damnation." Unquote. Macbeth lives in the world of the spirit, a world distorted and made nightmarish by his aberrations, yet of the spirit. Lady Macbeth remains confined to earthly reality to the very end. Macbeth is engaged in criminal activities, but he has the gift of imagination, keen sensitivity, and fineness of perception. He is haunted by visions and voices. Even when his ruin is complete, he has fitful glimpses of the light that illuminates his consciousness. He pines for the loss of troops of friends, honor, and love. He feels that he has fallen into the sere yellow leaf. He reviews his life with remorse and finds what a waste he has made of it. But Lady Macbeth has none of these illuminations of sublime consciousness. Her conscience gnaws into her and makes her desolate, and finally she is completely exhausted and broken. Question 22. Examine Lady Macbeth's role in Macbeth. Do you note any change in her character towards the end? Give reasons. Answer. Lady Macbeth plays the role of an instigator. She instigates Macbeth to murder. As soon as she receives the letter of Macbeth informing him of the prophecies of the witches, she decides on the murder of Duncan to gain the throne for Macbeth. It is correct to say that, but for her, the murder would have remained fantastical for Macbeth. See answer to question 17. Omit the first paragraph. Question 23. Banquo is a foil to Macbeth. How? Is Banquo also tempted by the witches? Or, quote, merciful powers, restrain in me the cursed thoughts that nature gives way to in repose, unquote. Analyze the character of Banquo in the light of this statement. CU 1998. Answer. The main function of Banquo in the play Macbeth is to suggest a contrast with Macbeth. His part in the battle is only less distinguished than Macbeth's. Both Macbeth and Banquo are called our captains within quote. Page 30. The difference of their character is fundamental and is markedly prominent in the very difference of their reactions to the predictions of the witches. Both are greeted by the witches. They predict glorious futures for both. Macbeth will become the king of Scotland, but Banquo will beget kings, though he will not be king. Macbeth takes the words of the witches seriously, but Banquo takes them with indifference. Macbeth insists on knowing more. Quote, stay you, imperfect speakers, tell me more. Unquote. Banquo is incredulous about what is said. Quote, have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner? Unquote. When the witches vanish, Banquo remains unmoved. Quote, the earth has bubbles as the water has. Unquote. Macbeth, however, misses them and speaks longingly about them. Quote, into the air, and what seemed corporal melted as breath into the wind. Would they have stayed? Unquote. When a part of the prophecy is fulfilled, Macbeth is greatly agitated, is rapt and broods. He cannot tear his mind away from the witches. The thought of murder occurs to him. Quote, I am Thane of Gordor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair? Banquo is doubtful about the truth of what the witches have said. What? Can the devil speak true? He dismisses the witches as, quote, instruments of darkness, unquote. He puts himself on guard against any possibility of being allured. Quote, oftentimes, to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths. Win us with honest trifles, to betrays in deeper consequence. Unquote. While Macbeth is elated at the immediate fulfillment of two of the prophecies, Banquo has doubts and misgivings. This difference in their characters persists throughout the play. Banquo is honest and frank. He is also disturbed by, quote, cursed thoughts, unquote. But he fights them with determination. He dreams of the weird sisters, Act 2, Scene 1, lines 21. He frankly confesses it to Macbeth. But Macbeth conceals his heart from him and speaks the falsehood. Quote, I think not of them, unquote. So Banquo is of free and honest nature, but Macbeth is a hypocrite. Banquo says to Macbeth that he is ready to listen to him so that he may not lose his honor, but keep his, quote, bosom franchised and allegiance clear, unquote. Banquo is also tempted. He is oppressed by, quote, cursed thoughts, unquote. He dreams of the weird sisters, but he tries to resist the temptation. Macbeth surrenders to temptation. Banquo overcomes it. He prays to the merciful powers to restrain in him, quote, the cursed thoughts, unquote. So while Macbeth inclines to the witches, he invokes the merciful powers. When the temptation assails him, he smothers it. Hush no more. In Holinshed, Banquo is an accomplice in crime. But Shakespeare does not make an accomplice of Banquo, partly because he makes Banquo a foil to Macbeth, and partly because King James traced his descent from Banquo. Bradley, however, points out that though no accomplice, Banquo is an accessory after the murder. He has, quote, yielded to evil, unquote, when he replies to Macbeth respectfully when the latter invites him to, quote, a solemn supper. Quote, let your highness command upon me, to the which my duties are with a most indissoluble tie for ever knit, unquote. Shakespeare hints at Banquo's weakness, his temptation.